Now, this is how your wake cap should look like after drawing your guidelines. You correct all the mistakes. Now, you take it off and you take it straight to your machine. This is how the bundles look like. You can see that it comes in different lengths, okay? Now, we're moving on to sewing our bundles to our wake cap. So just like we did when we were learning how to sew, and also when you were sewing double wefting, you do the same thing. You secure your beginning and then you secure your end. So that's exactly what I'm doing. So the guidelines are guiding you to be able to sew your wigs on your machines. You see what I just did? You don't pull your wig cap when you're sewing. Don't stretch it. You just position it, make sure that it is straight, make sure that it is plain, and then you sew it very neatly. Don't stretch it when you're sewing. So you secure your ends and you're good to go. So that's how you go about it. You go about all your lines until you're done sewing to the last line of your wig. So this is how you cut it. Please be careful. Make sure that you can see your scissors, the tip of your scissors, before you cut, so you don't cut off your bundles or your strands. Okay, make sure you're not cutting off your strands. Look how neat the sewing looks. So we took off that extra little strand over there, but make sure you're not cutting off your strands, right? Make sure you see your scissors appearing there, like you can see it before you cut, after sewing. So exactly this is what I'm doing again. You repeat the same thing throughout your guidelines, and then you're done sewing. You do that and then you're done sewing. You secure your ends with the reverse. You sew forward and then you cut. You do the same thing until you're done sewing. So look at how I'm cutting this. The scissors should, you should see it before you cut, so that you don't cut your strands. Now, when you're sewing and then you cut and then you get to a point where you have to join your bundle, this is how you go about it. You put the other bundle on top of the one that you've already sewed, okay, and then you can sew on top of it, but don't cover it too much with a lot of bundles. You just put a little bit on top of it and then you sew it. You can get it straight. Sometimes it will be a little bit below it, but make sure you get it straight. So you put it on top and then you sew it. You see the outcome. I'll show it to you right after this. So you see how you put it together. This is how you put it together, and this is the outcome. Very neat, and then you're good to go. Now let's move on. That's the last bundle we are sewing before we sew our bundle to our closure. So you're going to sew it all around the closure. So you put it right close to the end of the closure, and then you sew. So you are going to sew in between, just like you sewed in between when you were double wefting. You're going to sew. You're picking the first part of your weft to the end part of where your closure starts, okay? Where your hair is. You're sewing in between, so that we are not seeing any lace or any braid or any strand or any net. You're sewing in between, okay? So that's exactly what you're doing. And then you sew all throughout. When you're doing this, please take your time, because sometimes it can really go wrong if you're not very familiar with it, if you're not a pro. So take your time, and then when you get to the corners too, you take your time. You make sure you stretch it properly. Not stretch it too much, but just that you make sure that it is accurate before you sew your wig to your closure. And so we are done. This is just it. I know it looks easy, but you just have to have patience, okay? So when you're done sewing, you can take off some the threads if you over sewed, and then to the end of where your wig cap ends and where your closure ends, and then you can cut it off. And then also cut off any excess thread that you see. Now when you're done, this is how your wig cap should look like. Your interior should be neat, accurate, and beautiful. And when you have excess bundles, you can look for where you have bigger space, and then you sew it in between. This is how it should look like. You understand? So I had 2 extra bundles, so I put it in between. to fill it up. Okay, so now look at that, cover up, that seal. You see how beautiful it looks, and you don't see any net or anything. And then now you can cut off your net that covers your closure, your wig cap that covers your closure. You can just cut it off. Please take your time so you don't cut your closure. Please take your time so you don't cut off your closure. You just have to be careful with the scissors and put your hands in between, like I'm doing, to give you that freedom to cut off your excess wig cap. And we are done. I hope you understand up to this point. Good luck. Now the next thing you're going to do is to secure your closure wig unit with an elastic band. Okay, so you're going to measure 2 inches from where your closure ends off from your wig cap, and then you can mark it. So when you mark it, you do the same thing to the other side of the wig cap, and then you have that distance that you need, because your band must be smaller than your wig cap. Okay, so now you're going to measure from where your mark starts. You measure through in between, okay, and until you get to the next mark where it ends. And then from here we got 12.5. When you get your inches, you're going to measure 12.5 on your elastic band, and then you take 1.5 away from the 12.5 that you got, or the inches that you got. It's either you take 1.5 or 1 inches, and then you cut it, and then you can go back to your machine and then you sew it into your wig, so that you can have that security when you wear your wig cap, or when your clients wears their units, so that it doesn't fall off when they are in a certain situation that they have to be dancing or flipping their head back and forth or running and all that. Okay, now you secure it just like we did. You sew it back and forth, reverse, and then you sew it about maybe 3 to 4 or 5 times so that it's very firm. So you go to the other side, you do the same thing, and then you sew. Make sure that when you're sewing, you get all the hairs out of the way. Okay, so you put all the hairs out of the way, to the left, to the right, so you can have that space that you need to sew your elastic band inside your unit. When you are done, you cut off your threads. It's very important, so that you don't have threads in your units. You cut off all the threads and you're good to go. So we're done here. We're going to move ahead to style our wig unit. This is the outcome of the sewing. Hope we are all good up until this point. Right, so let's continue. We're going to be curling the hair. Now, before we do that, you have to blow the hair with your hand dryer to smoothing every strand in your wig, so that it will give you a good outcome when you curl it. There's a better brush that can be used. It broke when I started, so I had to resort to this. I'll show it to you guys. And then when you're done blowing the hair, you go in with your wax stick and your hot comb to make sure that you're smoothing every flying hair, and before you start curling. Some people also like to straighten their hairs after blowing it before they go ahead to curl it. But what I did here was, after blowing, I used the hot comb, and then I straighten while I curl it. Okay, so now that's what you do. So we're going to do a middle part. That's what I did. I did a middle part, and then I took some part of the hair and then use the wax stick and then hot comb it, and then hot comb the other side too. And then you can part the back side of the hair, so that it to give you that definite look. You can part that part, and then use the hot comb as well and the wax stick to press it down to give you a very smooth look. And then you can start curling your wig. That's how it should look like. It's even accurate than that. Okay, and also before you start anything, before you start blowing and all that, you need to pin your wig to your curl head very well, so that when you start blowing and curling, it wouldn't come off. So this was done before the blowing of the hair, and then the using of the hot comb and all started. Okay, and then next is the plugging. So you also plug your hair before you use your hot comb and your wax stick, okay? So not everybody does this. Not everybody plugs their closure wigs, but I thought I should teach you guys, and so that you have knowledge of how to plug your closure wigs, just like you can plug your any other wig that you want to plug. First of all, you take off that little part of the front of the wig that looks a bit natural away before you start plugging, just like I did. So as you can see, I'm plugging the hair and not the lace, okay? And when you're doing this, you have to take your time, be patient, do it gently so that you don't end up letting your hairline looking bald, okay? After every line, you make sure that you comb it and then get the excess hair that you've plugged out before you part it and then go in again. So you're going to go in about 3 or 4 times. And then when you're done, you bring all the hair back and then you comb it and then you pluck the front again so that the front can also look natural. So just like I'm doing, when you're done, you do the same thing to the other side of the hair, and then you can go in with your oil. This is an argan oil, very small. You use very small little, and then you go in throughout the hair, and then you can start curling. So you part your hair, and you can take about two sections each. And so that's a heat protectant that I'm using, and that's a mousse as well. You go through the hair, you part it into 2, and then you start curling. When it comes to the other, when you're done with this first part and you part the other side, I think you have to divide it into about maybe 5, 4 or 5. It depends on the length, so it depends on whether you want to curl it in big sizes or small sizes, okay? And so when you roll it up, you hold it for about 10 to 15 seconds, and then you can take your curler out and then you pin it, okay? And then you go through you do the same thing until you get to the top part or the closure of the wig. So you need a glove, okay? You need a glove because sometimes when you have to hold it for that few seconds, the heat, may burn you. So you can also do it without a glove, but I mean, you need a glove to do this. Now, if you don't have a curler, or some people also decide not to use the curler, what you can use is a bending rollers. I'll show that to you towards the end of this video. And now when you're using the bending rollers, all you need is water. Instead of the heat protectant spray that I'm using, you spray it with the water and then you use your mousse, and then you can go ahead and curl it with your bending rollers, okay? As you can see, I'm repeating the same thing. You curl it, you hold it for a while, and then you pin it. Now we've gotten to the closure part. When you get to the closure part, when you part it, you can part it into 2, and then you curl this one outwardly, not inwardly like we did from the beginning, okay? And then when you get to the front as well, the second one, you curl it to the back. Normally when you curl your hair to the back and comb it to the back, it's flexibly pushes forward, comes forward on its own. Some people also like to still curl it outwardly, so it depends on you whether you want to curl it inwardly or outwardly. When you see the outcome, then you can choose what you want, okay? Then you go in with your holding spray, just a little bit, not too much. Then that's it. You're good to go. This is the bending rollers I talked about. I hope we're good so far. We've got to the final stage and we're taking our pins off. Please take your time like I'm doing. Don't just take it off anyhow to get your curls, flying just anywhere. Now we've taken all the pins off. You can use your hands to pass through the hair, or you can use a big comb to comb through your hair throughout. And then when you get to the front, you comb it backwards so that when you comb it backwards, you can easily push it forward. So you can have that bobby look in front, unless your client doesn't want the hair all over her face. Now you go in again with your wax stick, but please don't use a lot of the wax stick, just a little bit. The first time to use just a little bit, okay? And then you hot comb it backwards again. Whilst you're hot combing it backwards, you lift it up with the bottom of your hot comb, just to give it that lift that you want. And then you can hot comb the front side as well. I mean the sides as well. Okay, and then you hot comb the back as well, just to give you a good finish. So you keep dressing it up, you keep correcting, you keep, styling it like the way you want it until you get your final look. So we are done. We're through with our wig, and this is the final outcome. Okay. And so with this particular wig, I did a bit of, cutting, at the front, like gave it a little bit of layers. So that's why you can see it like that. So you can do that, or you can just kill your wig without cutting it. So what I sprayed on it was the holding spray, just to hold your spray. It shouldn't be a lot, just a little bit all over the hair, and you're good to go. Now look at how beautiful the outcome is. When you're constructing your wig, make sure you're aiming for perfection from start to finish. Next is our final customization. You're going to use a step down of your shade color, your powder shade or foundation shade, to go through the middle part, or if maybe you did a side part, okay, you go through the side parts for the grid or the lace to look like your skin color, okay, to blend with your skin color when you wear your wig on. If you know the shade of your client, then you can do that. If you don't know the shade of your client, you can show them what to do, and then you leave it for them to do it when they get their wigs. Now we're going to cut the lace off. So this is what you do to the thicker part of the ends of the front of your lace that you're going to cut off. You cut that off, and then you go in. So when you're cutting the front of your lace, you're going to go in a zigzag manner. You're not just going to cut your lace straight, no. So when you're going with a zigzag manner, when you're cutting your lace, what it does is that it helps the front of your wig to look very natural. So when your clients, or when you wear your wig, you don't really see a line or a net there showing that you're wearing a wig. Do you get it? What it does, it helps it to kind of melt, okay, as if you've probably even used a glue or something. Yes, it helps it to blend with your skin when it's in a zigzag form. So you cut it, and then when you get to the other end, you do the same thing like we did when we started cutting. At this point, you go in again with your powder or your foundation, a step darker, and then you dab the back of your closure or your grid with that. You can also use a tint spray. There's a tint spray specifically for tinting your lace. It's called tinting of lace. So if you know your client's shade or color, you can use a tint spray to do that. So this is the custom wig unit you saw me rocking. I hope this class has been detailed enough. Wishing you all the best. You're welcome again. Now, when you have to work with this type of closure, what you do is to cut some of the lace off it, so that it gives you the freedom to be able to work with it. Or some people also decide to fold it and then sew all around it, okay, leaving the front of the closure. So you sew from the side to the back to the other side. Or you decide to cut it. I like to cut it, and then you go straight to your wig cap. So you fold it into two, and then you mark it, and then you place it in the middle. I've said this, and I'll say it again. So you use that middle line on your cock head to help you identify the middle, and then you bring a little bit of the hairline in front. So to confirm it, you can use your tape measure to measure just half an inch, okay, and then you can pin it, and then you pin the back as well, and then you pin the sides, and then you can continue with your sewing the closure to the wig cap. You stretch it and you pin it, making sure that there's no bump or space in the middle or anywhere in between your closure. You pin it and you pin the other side, and you're good to go. Just like we did for the first one. When you're sewing, you start from the thick side of the wig cap, and then it goes straight close to where your hairline ends, okay, where the closure ends. This is how I like to do it with this type of closure. I don't sew the extra lace to the wig cap, so I sew it right close the end of the closure, okay. And so you do this, you sew it, you secure it about 3 times. Then you continue sewing all round until you get to the other side of the closure, and then you pin it, you secure that end as well, and then you let your needle pass through the thick part of the wig cap, and then you tie it and you're good to go. I'll say this again, please, you'd have to take your time. If you're new to it will take some time when you're doing it, so don't worry about it. Take it easy, and so you can have a neat work when you're done with the whole process. This is how it looks like. You can see it very neat and very accurate. And then you pin it down, like I said, to the thick part, and then you can hide the knot you're going to be tying. So you tie it about twice and you're done. So I feel like the lace is still a bit too much for me, so I'm just going to cut a little bit, just a little bit of it. And if you want to, you can wait, and then when you're done sewing everything, then you go into it and then you cut it. So as you can see, when I was cutting it, the extra that I wanted to cut, I didn't cut it to down to the front of the closure. I just cut it to the side where the wig cap ends. Okay, if you want, you can leave it, and then when you're done sewing, then you can cut your extra lace off. After this, we're going to go ahead and then draw our guidelines, and I used 2 inches. This is because I have only 2 bundles and the length is not that long. So like I said, you need to know what you're working with so that you know how to draw your guidelines. If after this and I have any extra bundles left, I'll just sew it in and that's it. Like we did for the first one, the guidelines will help you to sew your bundles on your wig cap throughout. Please take note, I didn't double weft both of my bundles. I did a double weft for only one, and then I used it for the first and second guideline. The rest I used only single bundles to sew it in. And then as you can see, the last bundle that I had, I did a double weft for it. This is what I was doing, and then I just used it for only that last line before the last bundle I'm going to use for the closure part, stitching the bundle to the closure part. Okay, and the closure part too, for this one I used only one. I didn't double weft it. I used just the single bundle. Good thing is the bundle is double drawn, so that's okay. Now I'm doing all this so that I can make sure that my bundles are enough for my wig cap. Okay, it's just about being calculative and then making sure that you're able to get a good result. So I used the double weft one for the first and second line when I started, because I want the bottom of the blunt cut to be heavy. It has to be full. It has to look full. That's why I personally use this strategy. So this part, I'm sewing the last bundle to the closure. So as you can see, you have to sew it right. So you're sewing in between the bundle and the last line of your closure. Okay, so make sure that you don't go way into your closure. We're done sewing, so now you use your hand dryer to blow dry your hair, and then you make sure that all the strands are fine, all the strands are straight. Okay, you please do this very well, because with this you're not going to curl it, so you're going to make sure that you're blowing it very well, and when you're straightening it, you straighten it very well. You're going with your heat protector spray, and then you're going with your oil as well, just a little bit, please, just a little bit. Now normally when you're straightening or curling, you pick 2 of your layers, and then you straighten or you curl like I'm doing. So I picked 2. But for me, whenever I use 2 inches as my guidelines, I like to straighten my straight hairs or blunt cuts in single layers, okay, so that I can have a very sleek finish, okay. Because when you do it in 2 layers, it gives, some kind of line at the beginning of the second layer. So this is how I like to go about straightening when the guidelines are a bit wide apart. But when I get to a point where it's a bit closer, I just do it together. So yes, we continue, and then when you get to the top part as well, so every step of the way, you use your heat protector spray, and then you use your oil, and then you continue to straighten. When you're done straightening, you part it. It's the middle part, definitely, for this type of closure. So you part it, and then you straighten it, and then you use your wax stick to go over it, the sides and the back, and then the front as well. And then you use your hot comb to make sure that you flatten it and let all the flyaways or the excess hairs, become very smooth and very flat and sleek. And we are through. So I hope this tutorial for this process was clear enough. Next, we'll be cutting it to give us our final look. Welcome back again. So I'm aiming at 12 inches as the final look for this unit, okay. Now I'm going to begin cutting from 14 inches. So I'm measuring from the back of the closure, not from the front. So I'm using 14 inches as my starting point of cutting, even though I'm aiming at 12 inches. And this is because normally when you start cutting, okay, there's nothing you can do about it. You cannot get your hair back. And so it's safer to start cutting from 2 inches extra point before arriving at your actual inches that you need. Also, this gives you more room to correct any mistakes that you've made after you've done your first cutting. As you can see, I'm using a scissors. This is to show you that if you don't have a hair clipper, you can also use scissors. A very good quality one and very sharp to cut your blunt cut or your bob wig. Please be sure to pin your wig cap very well on your cock head. It has to be accurate, just like you started when you pinned your wig cap before sewing, adjusting and all that. When you don't pin it well and there are bumps in it before cutting, you think that, oh, it's actually accurate, but it's not accurate. When you take it off and you wear the wig, you realize that some part is a bit longer than the other and all. So as you can see, we are cutting in an asymmetric manner, slanting it downwards. That's what makes it asymmetric, okay? So that's what I'm showing you. You don't cut it upwards, you cut it downwards, slanting it, but it has to be accurate. Take note that I've pushed the cock head facing a little downwards before you start cutting. You can also decide to use your mannequin or the human head to start doing the cutting. I'll be transferring this to the human head because that has a very smooth head, and so it gives you an accurate outcome, okay. At this point, I've made corrections. I have cut it to about the 12 inches that I need, and so I'm trimming it to get the perfect and accurate outcome. And so I'll be transferring this to the human head. So that's the human head I was talking about. And then you tilt it a little more downwards. You can see that because this head is smooth, it has revealed the longer hairs inside your wig. So all you have to do is to trim the inside. Do not touch the outside. It's only the inside that you're targeting. And then you trim it accordingly to have that accurate cut. So we're done with everything. You see how the inside looks like. You see how the lower part of the wig looks like. It is heavy and it is very nice. So this is the final look. I hope that you get it. You have to be patient when you're cutting. Don't go straight in quickly because you're going to cut off a lot of your wig off. So you have to be careful when you're cutting. You can use any, cheap wig to practice it until you're good enough and confident. So hope you have learned a lot. Feel free to ask any questions if you have any. I'm wishing you all the best. Don't sit on this skill that you have acquired and keep learning, keep researching, keep trying to find new ways to improve on your skills. Bye.